The Headless Horse by Ulfric Stormcloak. In the small town of Sleepy Main, every pony is superstitious, but this is for good reason. Now, some of you may be saying you don't believe in ghosts, or there's no way they are real. But just maybe after hearing this tale, you may just rethink that. In Sleepy Main, every pony was happy and cheerful, always ready to welcome any newcomer to the little town. And that day a newcomer did arrive. A colt named Shining Gent strode into town. Gent was a handsome colt who held his head high with a light smile. Soon all the mares were swooning over the colt. He was a bit skinny and not all that tall, but still held a radiance about him that others seemed to admire. As he would walk down the streets, the ponies would wave and smile to him, all craning their neck to look at the sight of the colt. Now, another colt who was widely revered and well admired in the town was Colton, a strong and burly stallion who was the strongest and most well-known colt in the town. But as Gent came to town, he began to grow jealous of the attention he was attracting. As Gent made his way down the street, though, he stopped suddenly. Being pulled down the street in a chariot by two white stallions was True Beauty, the most lovely and beautiful mare in all of Sleepy Main. Not to mention, she was also the daughter of Pinched Coins. Her father was the wealthiest landowner of the town as well, but that mattered little to Gent, as he was stricken with the mare's unbridled beauty. At seeing this, Colton turned red with rage, he being one who planned to marry Beauty. Colton made his way towards Beauty, but was stopped by a group of mares swooning over him. Gent still eventually made his way to the mare. She looked at the newcomer and smiled softly. He could feel his heart burst in his chest at the sight, and held out a hoof to help her out of the carriage as she took his hoof, stepping out. "Such a gentleman," she smiled, pecking a kiss to his cheek as Gent's face went bright red. She moved off to go do her shopping. He stood there, waving as if in a trance. He was pulled out of it as Colton pulled him to face him, glaring down at him. "Get this, runt. Beauty is my mare, no pony else's," he claimed. Gent simply smiled devilishly. "Well, I would think she should belong to no one. But if you insist, let's see who wins her hoof," he stated simply. Many days and months passed as Gent spent many a night with Beauty, taking her out on the town, playing her music, and having her fall for him. Though Colton was having less luck, as it seemed he was always too busy with his own work to see her, or she was off with Colton. It was now around October, as the town was preparing for its fall barn dance. All the town was attending, showing up in fitted gowns and nice suits. Gent arrived with Beauty and her father, and Colton arrived alone, still burning over the jealousy of watching Gent and Beauty. As his night went on of watching them dance and laugh, Colton noticed something he hadn't before. Gent had spilled a bit of salt and looked about before lightly tossing it over his shoulder, whistling innocently. Colton smirked as he saw this. He had seen many instances of Gent being a superstitious pony. He would go out of his way to not walk under ladders. If a black cat was about to cross his path, he would duck around a corner. This gave Colton a grand idea. As the night was drawing to an end, Colton stood up next to the fireplace and called out, "All right, every pony, now before you all head home tonight, a story of caution to you all to give a listen." He grinned, his gaze turning to Gent and Beauty sitting next to each other. "Now, we all know the woods of Maine we are so known for." The woods Colton spoke of was the thick forest, so called the Maine, because the trees grew so thick together and loomed overhead. There was a small path through the large woods. On a night like this they seemed menacing and dark, and every pony would have to wander through to return back to town from Pinch and Coin's farm. Now, every pony listen well. I have this tale to tell. We all know the dark woods are scary, but every nightmare night on this eve, there is one threat that gallops through the trees. A horse as large as a bull, and its head gone from its body. As the story went on, Gent began to shiver slightly at the tale of the headless pony. And this horse only thinks of one thing to claim, to gather up a suitable head for him to take. So on your way home tonight, my fellow ponies, take care not to lose your head. Listen to the sounds of the thundering hoofbeats, and if he rides for you, you better ride harder than you ever have before. Once you cross that bridge, the headless horse will disappear, his magic gone. So tonight, my friends, ride hard to the trees and don't look back, for tonight he rides to claim a prize. Colton smirked as he ducked behind a table. Reappearing with a cloak covering his head, Colton reared up as the lightning flashed outside, shadowing his form and making him seem a headless pony rearing up, wearing a black cloak. Gent jumped out of his seat, scurrying under the chair, and all the town's ponies laughed at him. Even Beauty next to him couldn't help but giggle, holding her hoof over her lips. As the dance came to an end, Gent kissed Beauty good night and made his way off into the mains to head home. As he trotted through the dark forest, he looked about, Colton's story still chilling his bones. All the trees looked sprawled and crooked, as if bony claws reached out to try to grab him. Just as he thought this, he suddenly felt something grab on his coat-tail. He jumped in the air with fright and galloped hard, but something was pulling him back. Suddenly, it let go, and he tumbled to the ground and turned. There on a branch was a piece of his coat-tail ripped off. He sighed in relief, chuckling at his own superstitious nature. He continued to trot down the path, when suddenly he stopped as he heard something in the distance. It sounded like heavy hoofbeats galloping down the road. He gulped uneasily and continued walking, thinking it was just his fear again, but the sound seemed to be getting closer. The gallops of the hoofbeats were like thunder striking the ground, clattering down the mud path. Finally, Gent turned around and stared wide-eyed at the sight he saw. A headless black horse reared up, swinging its front hooves in the air wildly as a ghostly laugh rang out, its cloak billowing behind it. The figure began galloping towards him at breakneck speed. Taking off like a bullet, Gent raced down the path. Sweat was covering his brow as his hooves felt like lead anchors slowing him down. His heart pounded in his chest, and he heard behind him the gallops that seemed to get closer and closer. Suddenly, a pair of hooves hit him upside the head, knocking him down as he skidded along the ground and looked up to the headless figure backing away. "No, no, don't take my head, please!" he cried out, shivering as the headless horse chuckled before reaching up a hoof. Colton, pulling off the black cloak with a smirk. "So much for the elegant charm of Gent," he laughed. Gent sighed in relief at the sight, thinking he had never been so glad to see Colton. Colton smirked down at him, but a shadowy, large figure appeared behind him. Gent's eyes grew wide as Colton turned to see what he was staring at. As he did, with a swing of a hoof, Colton's head was separated from his body. A loud, dark cackle echoed out as the large black stallion, that was twice Colton's size, reared up with the bloody silver horseshoes he had used to sever Colton's head. Gent got back up on his feet, galloping again as fast as he could, but the headless horse was right on his heels, galloping after him quickly, and gaining on him. As he looked back over his shoulder, he saw the headless horse levitating Colton's head with an unseen magic. Gent screamed out as suddenly as the head was thrown at him. Ducking under the thrown head, he continued running. He felt a sense of relief as he saw the bridge, running for it faster than he had ever galloped before. Without even knowing it, he could hear the clatter of wood beneath his feet as he made it to the other side of the bridge. He huffed and breathed heavily, glad he had made it. Looking back, he saw the figure of the Headless Horse gone. He turned to make his way to the village to tell every pony of what had happened to Colton. The last sight he saw, though, was the Headless Horse standing before him, rearing up as it slung its silver horseshoes along Gent's neck. The next morning, Gent and Colton were nowhere to be found. Bloodstains coated the ground near the bridge and in the forest, but no pony was found. 1 year later, a pony walking down the path of the Maine's woods stopped as he heard a ghostly howl and raised his lantern with his unicorn magic. His eyes grew wide with horror as, hanging from a branch of a black, crooked tree, he saw 2 ponies' heads. It was Colton and Gent, both of their faces frozen in horror in their last moments, and their eyes missing from their sockets. From then on, ponies say, if you wander the Maine woods of sleepy Maine at night, gallop as quickly as you can to the town, or the Headless Horse may claim your head as its next prize.
Happy Nightmare Night, every pony. This story was written for the Halloween or Nightmare Night 2014 short story competition for Trotsdale Library in Second Life.